Have you ever wondered what it's like to be a touring musician? Have you ever wondered what it's like to live in a van or on a bus for that matter? If so, this video might just be for you. Let's talk about being on tour as a musician. Hello and welcome to Tim Conley Drums. So today's topic is going to be being on tour as a musician, the ups and downs of being on tour. Now, I have done quite a few tours. I've stopped. I don't do them anymore now. But in the past, I did quite a few. Some were good, some were bad. That's just the way it is. Usually, when you're starting out as a musician and you go on your first few tours, it's usually pretty rough. So, there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times. Let's talk about the good times first. First of all, when you're on tour, you're so excited to perform because you're going from city to city, town to town, and the excitement level to perform is quite high. And now I have to admit that does wear down over time. If you're doing an extended tour, it gets to the point, just like anything, where it's like, oh man, I just want this to be over. But I'm trying to focus on the positive. So the positive is the excitement level that you feel when you're driving to a venue, It is exciting. And then when you get to the venue, you check out the venue, it's like Christmas Day. Every day is Christmas Day when you're actually in the setup mode. It is fun, I have to admit. Now, some tours, I had to set up all my own stuff. Actually, most tours that I was on, they were pretty small and they weren't funded by huge record corporations. So I was setting up my own stuff. But I did have a couple tours where I actually had a drum tech and he would set up for me. That was awesome. So Russ, if you happen to see this, I really appreciate you, man, for the tours that you did with me. You were amazing. Absolutely. So you get to the venue, you set up, or your tech sets up. And then of course you got sound check, and sound check is actually quite enjoyable in most cases because you want to hear, what does this place sound like? Because every building sounds different depending on if you're outdoors, indoors, small, large, medium, church, a venue designed for sound, or sometimes you're playing in a place that is not designed for sound and it can be a nightmare. Anyways, so the positives of anticipation. Then we've got the actual show. When you get on stage and you're playing to a crowd of excited people, they're there to see you. They want to see you. They know your songs. They're excited to sing along with your songs. And it's an amazing feeling being on stage when people are people are paying attention to you and they're excited about you. It's not like a bar gig, because a bar gig, nobody's really there to see you except for maybe a few people that show up that are your family, friends, or actual fans. But even the family and friends, they've already seen you how many times? So that wears off pretty quick. In a bar scene, sometimes you have actual fans that show up, which is nice. It does happen, but most times in a bar scene, nobody knows who you are. They don't know what to what they're going to get from you. So the crowd is usually pretty tame and quiet. And, you can build up that as the night goes on in a bar gig, but bar gigs are not the same as tour gigs. First of all, in a bar gig, generally speaking, there obviously are bar gigs where you're buying tickets, but generally speaking, a regular bar gig, nobody's bought a ticket. So therefore, their expectations are pretty low, really. They don't really know who the band is or what the band's going to bring. They kind of hope the band's decent, but if the band sucks, they don't care because they didn't pay anything. Now, in a tour gig, most people are paying for the tickets. They know what they're going to get, so to speak, or maybe they haven't seen you, but you bring something that they like. Maybe you have a recording out on the radio. Maybe you're a tribute band and they've heard good things about you, or in a lot of cases, you're a tribute band, but they've never heard you, but they love the band. So if you're a Rush tribute band, or you're an INXS tribute band, or you're a Beatles tribute band, you're going to get fans of that band coming to the concert. They may never have seen you. Maybe they've heard about you. Maybe they've heard of you online, but generally speaking, it's going to be raw for them. So that means you've got to impress. You've got to bring your A game. So that's the next thing. Every single show you do on tour, if people are paying, you've got to play to your highest level. I've been sick on gigs. I've been not mentally there. I've had gigs where I just didn't want to play. I've had gigs where I got into an argument with somebody before the show and I was pissed off when I started the gig. Now, the thing is though, music, being a musician has an amazing ability to, before the show, you didn't want to play, you're not feeling well, you're pissed off, whatever's going on in your life. Then you get on stage, you're still thinking about those things, but then suddenly the music kicks in, the audience reacts. The next thing you know, everything that was bugging you before you got on stage is gone. Not always the sickness thing. Sometimes that just doesn't go away immediately, but everything else, anxiety, nervousness, anger, whatever you were feeling mentally before you got on stage. As soon as you get on stage, music and performance has an amazing ability to eliminate all that. So that's another thing about being on tour. Once you're on stage and you're performing, you're not thinking about things that are going on in your life. You're not thinking about the next venue. You're not thinking about getting back on in that van with 4 or 5, 6 smelly guys. You're not thinking about any of that. You're in the moment. And there's a beauty to being on stage with a crowd responding, the band responding, that moment as a drummer when the bass player turns around and gives you that knowing nod and that smile that you're in the pocket. That moment when the crowd responds to a song that they all love. Like, I can remember playing in a Beatles tribute. And I mean, the funny thing about the Beatles tribute is every song got a response because they're all fantastic songs. But when you play that one special song that a band has and the crowd reacts, and the Guns N' Roses tribute, I can remember playing, Welcome to the Jungle and Sweet Child of Mine, always got huge reactions. And there's such an incredible rush that you feel as a musician with that crowd reaction. So there's all the positives of performing in terms of what it does to your psyche, what it does to your well-being. When you're on stage and you're in the moment and the band is playing well, it's an incredible, incredible high and an incredible feeling. So those are the ups. Now, I hate to say it, but there's a lot more downs than the ups. One more up that I actually enjoyed was if the band actually got an opportunity to go to a radio station or meet people. I enjoyed meeting the fans. I enjoyed meeting, other people that would come in from other bands, or, the mayor of the town we were in, or if we went to a radio station and got interviewed, or if we went to a mall and signed things, whatever was what was happening. I mean, that was quite rare. Meeting people was very, very common. You meet people at every single venue, every single show. And I actually enjoyed that. I enjoyed meeting people. I like the meet and greets, and I enjoy seeing people happy and them coming up to you and saying, I love your band. Your music inspired me. Or if you're in a tribute band, I really love the Beatles and I really enjoyed, your interpretation of the way Ringo plays or whatever. So the positivity of the people and the energy is incredible when you're on tour. So that part of it is amazing. Now the negative. Well, as I mentioned, 5, 6 smelly guys. Not everybody showers. Sometimes you got to tolerate guys that smell bad, and they will give you the hardest time when you say, look, dude, when we're finished the show, hop in the shower. We all got to jump into this small little van, and it only takes one guy to smell the whole van up. So when you're done the show, as a courtesy, Every musician should know this. You got to clean yourself up after the show. I always did, but I played in bands with guys that didn't. I can remember one band I played in on tour, and the guy's feet smelled like hell. And he would always wear these stupid he called them gardening shoes. Well, the gardening shoes we were on tour ended up getting thrown out of a moving vehicle. I'll never forget that. We were, all of us, not just me, complaining about the smell in this vehicle, in the van. And we figured out it's these shoes. So the bass player, no, sorry, the guitar player picks up the shoes, because it was the bass player's shoes, rolls down the window and out the window the shoes, and the bass player had a fit. Those are my only shoes, whatever. Those were his only leisure shoes. He had shoes that he would wear on stage, but he tried to play it off that those were his only shoes. But we all knew that he would change out of those because they were like Crocs or something. But they smelled like hell, and we had to get rid of them because it was killing us in the van. So anyways, out the window they go. He's screaming and yelling, stop the van, we got to go back and get him. In the end, as I recall, I think they did stop and go back, but couldn't find them. So he was really pissed off. Now, to me, I got to be honest, I thought that was funny. The other thing that can happen on tour is the bonding. Sorry, I keep going back and forth between negative and positive, but I'm remembering things. I don't have a script here, guys. I'm just remembering things. The bonding that takes place amongst the guys in the band can be amazing. It can be terrible, because what sometimes happens is you don't, if you're in a band and you're not on tour and you just hook up to rehearse and you hook up at the gig, but you don't socialize or you don't hang out, then you don't really know the guys in your band. And if you don't live with them, you don't realize they got weird habits. We all have weird little habits that annoy people. When you're on tour, you discover all the little habits that people have that drive you insane. Some of them are habitual. Some of them, they don't even realize they're doing what they're doing. It's because they do it every day, so they don't even think about it. The noise, like for example, let's say a guy's an early riser like me. I was always an early riser. Now, I tried to be quiet, but sometimes guys would get pissed off at me because I'm running the coffee machine at 6 a.m, and these guys don't get up that early. Some of them wouldn't even wake up till we got to the venue if they weren't driving. Now, that's the other thing. Negative, back and forth again. Sometimes you don't have a bus driver. You don't have an assigned driver. The management, the light guy, the sound guy, and the band do the driving. In some cases, it's just the band that does the driving, and you have to alternate. That can be difficult too. When you finish the show, it's your turn to drive. You're absolutely exhausted, but you got to get behind the wheel. It's 11 o'clock at night, and you got to drive all night to the next venue. Everybody sleeps pretty much except for you. Obviously, you're not going to drive all night. Somebody will switch off with you at 3, 4 in the morning, whatever. But man, those long Northern Ontario nights, driving in pitch black, and all you see is trees. It's just pure forest. And you're like, holy shit, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. If we have a problem, it's going to be hell. Back to the negative. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you run into a problem, oh my God, you get a flat tire, you ran out of gas, somebody gets sick, you hit an animal, the vehicle just breaks down, you get a phone call saying the gig's canceled, whatever happens. It can be very, very difficult, because then you see a side of people that you might not ordinarily see. And that's the frustrated, pissed off, angry guys. Start inner fighting because you should have put gas in, you should have checked the tires, you should have, the finger pointing starts. That can be brutal. Sometimes bands don't recover from that because they see a side of somebody in that tour that they've never seen, except at 3 a.m. and the car breaks down and they got one of the guys in the band, or even all the members, they all explode, the finger pointing, the yelling, the screaming. that can be an absolute nightmare. And some bands don't recover from that because they think to themselves, and this happened to me, you see a side of somebody where you're like, I don't want to see this side again. But you don't want to be walking around on your tippy toes. There's the worst thing is when you're afraid to piss somebody off because you saw that temper and you just don't want to have to go through listening to the screaming and the yelling and the temper and whatnot. We're talking about human beings. We're talking about a group of human beings. Not all the time do you get along. And sometimes it can be backstage. You could be in a green room and it's 5 minutes before you're going on stage. You get into an argument about something, or the show is done. Singer comes off. He's all pissed off at the drummer, me, because I was speeding up, or I overplayed in a section, or I did something during a song he didn't like, or he couldn't hear himself. His inner ears, his ears monitors weren't working, et cetera, et cetera. All these things. You come off stage, and the next thing you know, boom, you're right into it, and you're coming off a high of being on stage, and then the next thing you know, you're into an argument. So these ups and downs of touring is unbelievable. Okay, now, people, general public that have never been on tour, they only see the show. If you watch a documentary, you get to see a little bit of the backstage. I've watched dozens and dozens of these type of documentaries, so you can see them. So you get an inside look, but you're not living it. So when you get a look at something, it's completely different than actually living it, let me tell you, because there's going to be nights where you just don't want to be there. 6 months into a tour, you're somewhere you don't even want to be. You've just had some kind of a negative phone call, maybe from back home. The kid is sick. Something's wrong at home. Could be anything. And you just don't want to perform. But like I said, the performance itself does have a way of perking you up. But as soon as that perk is gone, it's like a drug, the high of performance, it's like a drug. Once you come down off that high, you can go back into misery in some cases. So that's the thing. Mood swings and depression during the tour. Oh my God. Now, I have to admit, I never got depressed on a tour. I was always thankful to be out there, and I did have moments 6, 7, 8 months into a tour where it's like, holy shit, I just want to go home. I've had enough of this. Now, this wasn't specifically a tour, but going back and forth, I was subbing in for this band, but I was going back and forth, home gig. So it's not really a tour, but the band was on tour. That's another weird thing that some musicians do. Some musicians, they don't want to be on the tour. And if the tour doesn't go too far from home, so let's say you're doing a Ontario tour, Southern Ontario. So you're going from, Windsor to Kingston, let's say. So you're doing that western from Windsor all the way through. You're literally driving along the 401. A lot of guys go home on those tours. They don't necessarily drive the entire tour from Kingston to, from Windsor to Kingston. Some guys will go home. I can't say that I went home a lot on the tours. Sometimes I did because I had to deal with things at home. But generally speaking, I would stay with the tour. But like I said, when the tour goes on and on, I can remember being on a tour with a guy, and this is nothing against people that like to smoke up, but I don't, and I can't stand the smell. Reminds me of a skunk. And I don't think I've ever told you guys, maybe I have, but I got sprayed by a skunk as a kid, and I have a terrifying fear of skunks. I'd rather get chased by a lion than a skunk. And I'm afraid of skunks, and I can't stand the smell, because when I got sprayed when I was 12, I couldn't get rid of that smell. It was in my head. I mean, I would say to my mom 3 months after I got sprayed, do I still smell like skunk? She'd come over and give me the sniff test. She'd say no, but I could still smell it. And it was in my head. It was in my nostrils. I could smell it. And I smelled skunk for the longest time. As a result of that, growing up as a teenager, I was never interested in marijuana or weed, partially because of the health reasons. I just don't think it's healthy, but mainly because of that skunk smell. I can't handle it. I cannot deal with skunk smell. I smelled skunk yesterday. Oh my God. It just sends me into a loop. I just can't deal with skunks. I got a thing about them. I know you guys are all laughing. I got a thing about skunks and I just can't stand the smell. So here I am off on tour with this rhythm guitar player, and they roomed me with him, and he smoked night and day. I remember saying to him one time, "What are you like not high?" Now, I liked the guy, but he was high constantly. I'm not high at all. He was constantly high. We lived in this parallel world. Now, he would go out on the balcony if we had a hotel, but I absolutely insisted that he not smoke in the vehicle. So we would be on tour. We'd have to do these stupid smoke stops, which drove me insane because we're trying to get to the next venue. I didn't like stopping unless you had to go to the bathroom or get food or whatever, important shit. But this guy would always say, "Let's stop so I could have a smoke, man. Gotta have a smoke, man." And he would get out and he'd walk away from the vehicle somewhere. Could be the middle of winter, minus frickin' 20 out at 4 in the morning, and he would still have to smoke his dope. This drove me insane. But, anyways, I can remember having points where I'd had enough of him. And I went to the management and said, "Look, I like him. I'm not going to say his name. I like the guy, but I've had enough of the dope smoking. I just can't deal with it anymore." And I said, "You got to keep him away from me." Like I said, it's not a personality thing. It's not like he's done something to me that I dislike. I just can't stand. He smells like dope all the time. Told him about my skunk thing. And so they finally moved him away from me. And I was thankful. And when the tour ended, I was like, "Oh my God, I can get rid of that freaking skunk smell." So, like I said, there's going to be these ups and downs, and getting along is a huge, huge thing. I'm sure that there's guys out there that can relate to what I'm saying. Now, when the tour is done, you finally come home, you actually get a feeling of missing the road. That's why artists keep going back out and back out and back out. Now, like I said, I stopped doing this because I just want to be at home with the family. I'm not interested in being on the road. I mean, I'm not playing in bands that are, Bon Jovi and Iron Maiden. I'm not flying around in jets and luxury and eating fine food and getting treated like a king on the gig. I was doing small and mid-range type gigs and small and mid-range to venues. When I was doing the Northern Ontario tour, we were in a shitty little van that kept breaking down. We were pulling our gear in a trailer, and all the venues pretty much were shit. All the accommodations shit. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not all glamour. Even if you're a hired gun, and like my friend Phil X that plays Phil Exopoulos that plays for Bon Jovi. I know Phil from the Toronto scene, great guy. He is in the lap of luxury, but even he said to me, it's got its limits where it's like, man, I got to get off the road. I just need a break from the bus. I need a break from the guys. I need a break from the fans. I just want to sit in my own house and watch some YouTube and drink coffee. I get that. Now, one thing I've noticed as I've gotten older is that my tolerance for nonsense and bullshit is very low. So being out on tour now for me and having to put up with all the nonsense that you got to put up with, I couldn't do it anymore. People change as they get older. So anyways, guys, that's my spin on being on tour, the good, the bad, the ugly. So let me know about your experiences. I would love to hear it. I know a lot of my viewers are or have been touring musicians. Maybe some of you currently are. Let me know. If you're on the road right now, please let me know and tell me where you are and where you're playing and all that stuff. So anyways, guys, thanks very much for watching. And as always, please subscribe, like, comment, and as always, keep drumming. See ya.